Totally. I was about to touch on that as well, actually, as you see this playing out in terms in negotiations. So we see this playing out a lot at the moment with our clients is most settlements, we might have gone under contract and gone unconditional in the last couple of weeks, but most are trying to settle before Christmas because that's really when it's done and dusted is it's out of my hands. I've sold the property. I've wrapped it up. And now I get to relax over this period and like get my feet back on the ground and figure out how to approach next year. So everyone, we're seeing that a lot. It's like, okay, the weeks before Christmas is like where most things are trying to settle. But that's part of the beauty of negotiating in this time of year is because if you do know that a vendor, they might say that they want a certain price, but they also want certain terms. So that leaves you like, if they're more actually motivated to make sure that it settles before Christmas, and you're flexible with that, then it leaves room open to negotiate on the price because you might suit their terms better.
Yeah, 100%. And that's actually one of the key reasons. So I think we've covered three, right? So we've covered beat the competition.
Yep.
We've covered motivated sellers.
Yep.
And you just started hitting on using terms to maneuver the price, because that's one of the key things. You can only ever negotiate on two key components: price or terms. Do you want the money or do you want the favorable terms? And as you touched on there, it's a really big lever for both people because sometimes if a buyer wants to settle sooner or later, then the vendor will have a better opportunity to navigate that to get the price they want. Vice versa, if you can understand the needs of the vendor, they may say, look, I want to sell now, but because it's Christmas, I can't move until the 1st of February. So then what you could do in that scenario is you could say, that's fine, I want it now. I'll secure it now, which is a great strategy because you can secure it at the price and not have the holding costs. Yeah. So long settlements can actually be really, really fun because if you buy in a really in a busy market or in a good market where the property prices are going up, and you buy a property for let's say $300,000, and then the market moves up by 5% over the next 90 days, which is not unheard of, then you could be $15,000 up by the time that it settles, and you haven't had to carry the cost of debt over that period of time. So you can actually make a cheeky little win there if you play your negotiation or play your terms correctly. But that's how it can play out. If you can understand the vendor's motivation, and for more tips on this, just go back and listen to one of our episodes called The Art of Ethical Negotiation. And we touch on all of that kind of stuff, how to find out the vendor's motivation and what to do with it. But if you can understand that, you're in a position, you're in the hot seat to go, okay, well, how do I want to play this? Particularly as an investor. The benefit of being an investor is you're not trying to move into the home. So if you can get, as long as your finance is in good standing order and there's no rush there, then you've got the ability to navigate it to get the best price and be flexible with terms. So for example, if the vendor was saying, no, I want this done and dusted before Christmas Day. Now, this episode, I think, is going to come out on about the 10th of December, I think, right? Roughly. So that if you found someone today that said, I want to settle in the next 14 days, I want to settle in the next 14 days. Now, if you have your finance together and you can do that, you can do all the due diligence, there's a very strong potential that you could make that happen. But you would obviously, because of the additional stress and the additional work and all of that kind of stuff, you would obviously want to be compensated by a lower price. And so this is how you can navigate those two things really powerfully in this current market because there's such a dead spot, because there is such a big dead spot in the market.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that previous podcast episode we did on ethical negotiation because it is a really good episode. But it just made me think about, I think you touched on like investors at this time of year tend to be in a better negotiation position purely from the aspect of homeowners. This is generally an emotional time of year for homeowners, right? For people. But if you've got a home, this time of year, you might be more emotionally charged about the terms of the property that you want to sell versus if you were trying to sell it in June. So like it might be about I need a certain price for this certain reason emotionally, or I need it to happen, like I need it under contract by this date, or I need it to settle by this date, or I just want to have a relaxing time, so I want as long a settlement as possible, and I don't really want to move this time of year. And there's all this emotion that comes from the homeowner perspective Whereas an investor, if you're pretty flexible in your timing and the terms, that's really how you can leverage it, because it's not about taking advantage of their emotional situation. It's just being accommodating to what they need, versus you might have the same vendor, the same property, the same location, as I said, in June, and you might not have that same leverage. So I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
But again, go back and listen to that ethical negotiation episode, because we go a bit deeper into that.
100%.